In this video, I'm going to show you a number of ways to edit a cabinet that you've already drawn. So I've got a bunch of cabinets here, and depending on what your objective is, you'll use a different approach. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the Edit Story Stick tool, and that allows you to change certain parameters on the cabinet. So if I just select part of this cabinet, right-click, and do CabWriter Edit Story Stick, it's going to walk me through each of the styles. And I can do things like shift the style, right, left, forward, backward, up and down, and then what distance I want to do that, and I can even change the style type. In this particular case, I don't want to change the style type, but what I do want to do is move the cabinets down a little bit. Maybe I realized I placed it in the wrong spot. So I'm going to say move the cabinet down, and I'm going to say that I want to do that 2 inches. And now it's not going to let me change the style type because this actually applies to the entire cabinet. So when I do this, it moves it down 2 inches. I can also undo this by doing Edit Undo Story Stick and put it back. So let's try another one. So if I do it again, I can edit the story stick, and I'm going to shift the style forward. So I may have drawn this cabinet at the wrong depth. Right now I'm at 13 inches, but I'm going to change this to a 15-inch deep cabinet. So I'm going to move it forward by 2 inches. So notice the cabinet's moved away from the wall. Now what I can do is I can go in and use a different technique for editing the cabinet. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my settings for upper cabinets, and they're currently set to 13 inches deep. I'm going to change that to 15. Closing the window, that updates. And now again, I'm going to right-click on, I'm going to select one portion of this cabinet, right-click, and I'm going to say redraw the selected cabinet. Now, it's asking me if I want to use the stored defaults. When this cabinet was drawn, the defaults that it was drawn with were stored with the cabinet. So it's asking me, do I want to use those defaults? In this case, I don't, right? Because I changed one of the defaults in the parameter settings. So I want to use those. So I'm going to say no, and that'll force the cabinet to be redrawn using what's currently in the parameter settings. And apparently, I also had the height of the cabinets set incorrectly. So again, I can go in and check that. And indeed, it was set to 23 inches from the previous operation. So I'm going to set that back to 38. Close that. And do the same thing again. Right-click. CabWriter, redraw selected cabinets. Do not use the stored defaults or it'll just draw it at 23 inches tall again. And there we go. I have a 15-inch deep cabinet that is now in the proper spot. So the next thing I want to do is, turns out this cabinet needs to be a little tiny bit longer. In order to make it longer, I have to go back to the Edit Story Stick tool. So I'm going to click on one portion of this and say Edit Story Stick again. This time I'm going to work with the individual styles. So this style here, I'm not going to change at all. It's going to stay the same type that it is. But the next one, if I want to make this cabinet overall 2 inches longer and keep these bays equal, I need to move this center style to the right 1 inch. So I'm going to say move it to the right 1 inch, and I'm going to leave it as a connector style. Again, I could change the type. And this one I'm going to move 2 inches to the right. So there we are. You can see that it moved it over, and I've still got hopefully 2 equal boxes here. So this one is 23 and 15 30-seconds, and this one is 23 and 31 30-seconds. So they must have been unequal to start with, and they remain that way. But everything is an inch bigger. These two are an inch bigger than they were, and this is 2 inches bigger. If I didn't like that, I could undo it again, and I'd be back to where I was. So the Story Stick Edit tool allows you to change anything to do with what you originally specified using the Story Stick tool. So that's basically the placement and type of the styles in space, so in X, Y, and Z space. So I can move styles forward, backwards, up and down, and left and right, hence moving the cabinet with it if it's up and down and forward and back, and or changing the style types. But I can't change anything else using that tool. So if I want to change the type of boxes that the cabinet has, and number of doors and so on, that I use a slightly different tool. Again, I click on one of these. It's a CabWriter Edit Cabinet. Do I want to use the stored defaults? In this case, yes, because I'm not changing anything about the construction method. I'm just changing the type of boxes that are there. So I'm going to use the stored defaults so that I don't change anything accidentally. And it leads me through as if I was first drawing the cabinet. So this is still going to be a standard upper, but maybe I want to change the number of doors. And next, I can also keep it a standard upper, and maybe change the number of shelves to 1. I could change the material type and a couple other settings here, and then I say OK, and I've got my new 1 door. So those 2 tools allow you to change anything, again, with the Story Stick tool that was specified via the Story Stick and the styles. And then the Edit Cabinet command allows you to change the attributes of the boxes that are behind or that make up the cabinet. Anything else that you want to change, you can simply go into the settings box and make changes there. But notice in this kitchen I've got a number of different construction styles. These are face frame, this is face frame, this is frameless over here. Right now I'm working in face frame. So if I wanted to go edit this cabinet and I did something like a redraw selected cabinet or edit cabinet, it would be using those same parameters that I've got loaded right now, which happen to correspond to this cabinet. That could cause me to draw the cabinet kind of funny. So what I want to do first is select the cabinet and then use this tool called Retrieve Cabinet Defaults. And if you watch that video, there's a whole video on this concept. What that did was take the parameters that were used to draw this cabinet and populate my settings. So now I could do something like, for example, I could go into my base cabinets and change the countertop height to 40 inches. And maybe on my doors, I want to change the lower rail width to 6 1/4. Closing the box updates that. And now I click on this again, right click and say CabWriter, redraw selected cabinets. Do I want to use the stored defaults? No. If I do, it'll redraw it exactly like it is now. Since I changed some defaults, I want to use the ones that are in the default box right now. So I'm going to say no, so that I don't use the stored defaults. And voila. I've got a taller cabinet and I've got taller lower rails. But notice I didn't change my upper drawer height my drawer heights for a drawer bank. So I would have to go in and change those to match if I wanted this to come out properly. But I can do that with any attribute now, or construction method of the cabinet. I can simply go into my parameters, change them, and then redraw that cabinet, and do not use the stored parameters in it, so that I get the new settings applied to that cabinet. Now those new settings are now stored with this cabinet, so if I were to redraw it again with its stored, redraw selected cabinets and say use the stored defaults, yes, nothing changes in that case because we didn't change anything. So that's a variety of ways to edit your cabinets, and hopefully you enjoyed the video.